We're going to call to order our first hearing of the evening. This is the application of Mark Duffy and Emily Duffy. It's dated June 27th, 2016. Mr. and Mrs. Duffy reside at 175 Churchill's Lane in Milton, Massachusetts, and they want to construct a 6-foot by 45-foot one-story covered porch addition to the front of their single-family home. Section 6B2 of the bylaw requires that portions of the building be set back a minimum distance of 25 feet. And the other applicable section here, section 6C1, requires a 12-foot setback from the side property line. And the Duffys are proposing that the addition be 18.5 feet from the front property line and 10.3 feet from the right property line. Properties in a residential zoning district. My name is John Leonard. I'm chairman of the Board of Appeals. With me tonight is, to my immediate left, is board member Stephen Lundbohm, and to my immediate right is board member Nicholas Gray. The rules of the board are such that we'll hear from the applicant, we'll hear from any people who have questions of the applicant, listen to people who want to speak in support of the application, anyone present wanting to speak in opposition to the application. We're tape recording the proceeding this evening. The tape recording is the official record of the proceeding, so that would ask that before anyone speaks, tell us your name and address, speak up nice and clear and loud, so that we'll have an accurate recording of the hearing if we have to revert to the tape in order to decide this matter. I've summarized the advertisement. We're also going to have as evidence at this hearing the application that was filed by Mr. and Mrs. Duffy on the 27th of June, 2016. And we also have the denial letter from Joseph Prondak. It's dated June 20th, 2016. Mr. Prondak is our trustee building commissioner. The applicants have filed with us a certified plot plan of the subject property. It's by Daniel J. Tivnan of HS&T Group of Worcester, Massachusetts. First time we've had Mr. Tivnan's documents before us, but we appreciate it. And we also have an elevation and existing conditions plan for the property by Architectural Design of Norfolk, Massachusetts, and that is dated, it looks like it's 6/3/2016. And so we thank Mr. and Mrs. Duffy for supplying all of these materials. We see Mr. Duffy is present, so welcome to the Board of Appeals, Mr. Duffy. We're pleased to hear from you.
Thank you. Before I go any further, Mark Duffy, 175 Churchill's Lane. Here also on behalf of my wife, Emily Z. Duffy, also of 175 Churchill's Lane.
This is very good. You passed the first test.
Right?
This is a good start.
Half of it's showing up. The proposed addition simply is an extension to the existing house. Goes lateral left to right on the existing building footprint and extends approximately 6 feet out straight towards the street, which is Churchill's Lane. I think that the addition, while perhaps somewhat encroaching on the setback to the immediate front, would add to the character and value of the house and is in line with the character and layout of the rest of the houses in the neighborhood. I've had a chance to speak to my neighbors and friends, and most importantly, my legal abutters, and I've had no objections to the proposed addition. I spoke to them both before proposing the addition as well as after having put my application in. I've heard no opposition to it, only encouragement to it, and perhaps the fact that nobody's here in direct opposition today, not that I know of, speaks to that fact. Beyond that, I'll leave the board to the designs and my application materials. If there are any questions of me, I'm happy to field them.
Great. Thank you for your presentation, brief albeit as it was. Mr. Lundbohm, do you have any questions?
Can you tell us a little bit, Mr. Duffy? I'm just looking at the design plan. It looks like it's going to be an open type porch.
It is sort of a farmer's porch concept, hip roof, columns therefrom, and I think we're planning on a poured concrete with stone on it.
Okay.
And it will remain open. There are windows under the proposed roof that are already in the main house. And as to the second floor, perhaps maybe not answering question, but going a step further, there are some proposed new window additions. Those are merely cosmetic to sort of line the house up properly.
I see.
I'd like, as background for the board, to know that this is sort of phase 2 of a project. The board had previously granted a variance for the addition of the second floor to this once one-story ranch. We went straight up on the existing footprint, but did not finish the project as such, simply because we were trying to sort of build within our means, and found it now time to add that front porch sort of and finish the work we started a few years ago.
Great. It's fair to say that your roofing materials and your color schemes of the proposed porch will match what you have there?
Exactly. It's a
House
black asphalt shingle, same as is currently on there. It's relatively new, so I don't think we'll have a match problem. There'll have to be some rejiggering done with some of, that's a technical term, rejiggering done of the existing siding fascia, which is hardy plank or cement board colored.
I see.
But I'm confident we can do that and keep it looking like we want to, a little bit more architectural, and right now it's more of just a set of rectangles. This will give it a little dimension, and we hope to make it look a little bit more like, a fully finished, really, classic house in the neighborhood.
Excellent. No other questions?
Mr. Gray.
So I'm just trying to tie in the plans to the plot plan. Is the porch going here? Is that, it's not
Precisely.
shown on the plan, the plot plan?
For the plot plan, no.
Right, okay.
That's the as-is, and no, it's
That's
not.
as is, okay.
And certainly, it is, off the immediate front, taking the entire length of the front.
So if I was just going to sketch it out so I can remember it later, it's exactly this, looks like it's exactly the same width as the front of the house, and it's just coming out this way.
Exactly. Keep in mind, there's a garage there on the left.
Okay, so that where it touches, where the front porch touches the side, the side that's it's encroaching into the zone, it's not really getting it much or very much closer to the line than the existing house,
Exactly.
right? Okay, that's all I have.
Great. Well, I have no questions of Mr. Duffy, other than to say I think the architectural effect on the house is stunning. It's really beautiful. It's
I
going
hope
to be.
it's well, yeah.
If it
the
comes
execution,
out looking like this,
Right, that's the hope.
it's going to be a dramatic improvement, and really, it's going to make the house look great. And the neighbors, I'm sure, that's why they all support this.
I'm
because-
fairly certain that's what they're in it for, yes. Yeah.
So I have no questions of the applicant. Let me see if there's anybody present who has questions of the applicant or otherwise wishes to speak in support of Mr. and Mrs. Duffy application for variances, and there's no such person present. Is there anyone present who otherwise wishes to be heard or wishes to speak in opposition to these variance applications? Thundering silence. So unless you have something further to add, we'll
I don't.
end the evidence portion of this hearing, and under the open meeting law, we're required to discuss this application in open session, and we intend to do that here and now and vote on this application. Mr. Lundbaum, please.
Oh, thank you, Chairman Leonard. Thank you, Mr. Duffy, for your presentation. Very well done. We've granted this type of relief many times in the past. Obviously, a very tasteful addition to the home. We really appreciate you speaking to your neighbors, especially the most affected abutters, and it's great that you got them on board. So I think in the overall, I would tend to vote in favor of the application.
Okay, Mr. Gray.
I think it's going to be a great project. It's going to be a real asset to the house and to that street. And since the neighbors are not in opposition and the encroachment on the side is really no different than it is now, I think I will vote in favor of it.
I agree with both my colleagues. I think it's a stunning improvement to the house. It'll be great for your family. It's great for the fair market value of the house. It's great for the neighborhood. This building project, I guess, the only question I should have asked you and I didn't is what are you going to be up to next?
Next, I'm gonna relax for a while. I've got two kids that are about, one of them might be entering Milton Academy soon, and as well as and all of them finally in school. Even my youngest starts kindergarten here this coming Tuesday.
Isn't that great? You've got tears in your eyes. I
Oh,
can
putting
see
them on the bus is always a tearful thing, but especially for the first time, especially my last. But yeah, that's what we have in store next, and once we get this edition behind us, I think we'll cool our jets for a while.
Okay, that's fine, and I know Mr. Mullen, who sits on the board, loves porches, so we'll have to make sure he sees this particular design. He must be in the market for a new farmer's porch. So this looks a little more, well, I don't know, it's a little more federalist, I guess, than the ordinary farmer's porch.
Yeah, I'm selling it to my wife as farmer's porch. She's more, she's a little bit more understated in her taste. Whereas, yeah, I'm sort of hoping to really make it as true as I can to design. But it's going to involve just hiring the right guys. It's what it comes down to at the end is, it's craftsmanship.
Does indeed. So all those in favor of granting Mr. and Mrs. Duffy's application for variances with the usual conditions, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so I'm not going to lecture you on the law. You know the law probably better than we do. We're going to take maybe 10 days, a couple of weeks to prepare a written decision. We all sign it, file it with the clerk. Even though nobody has appeared in opposition, there's still 20 days between which before you can pull your building permit. If you have, or your contractor has either demo or prep work, sometimes you can talk to Mr. Prondak in these circumstances, and he's generally forgiving, and he will give you some leeway.
He's been kind and helpful
He's
throughout.
he's been very helpful. He's a terrific guy. And then just be sure you, even though you're a litigator, record your variances in the
Will do.
Registry of Deeds.
Did I not record my last
Oh,
variance?
I'm sure you did.
Oh, I will absolutely do so, yeah. And although
Maybe it's lapsed and you can't build this porch.
Yeah, I know, outside of securities, I'm afraid, outside of securities litigations, I'm afraid I'm out of my own.
But really, make sure you record it. Mrs. Fitzgerald can certainly give you the place and where to do it and the fees, and get a certified copy of it. So congratulations. So thank you for coming this evening, and good luck in your improvement.
Thanks, and thanks to members of the board. I know this, coming here takes time out of your schedules too, I'm sure you're busy.
But we're paid so much money for doing this.
Yeah,
You know,
I
it's,
live for it. Yeah, it's the benefits, I'm sure. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Good to see you. Okay.
Steve, I think.
Mr. Stevens, have a good one.
This is the Cronin Conference Room.
It is indeed.
Awesome.
Is Margaret Conant here? Okay. Why don't you come on up, Mrs. Conant? We'll do some of the preliminary work and get you underway. This is our second hearing of the evening. This is a 7:45 hearing, and it's the application of Margaret Conant. It's dated July 8th, 2016. And Mrs. Conant is seeking variances from the Milton zoning bylaw to build a 10-foot by 7-foot open deck at the front and an 8 by 20 deck at the rear of a single-family dwelling, which is located at 11 Morton Terrace in Milton. The front deck is proposed to be built at a distance of 17.8 feet from the front property line, when the bylaw requires 20 feet, and the rear deck is proposed to be built 23.7 feet from the rear property line, when Section 61 of the bylaw requires a 30-foot distance from the rear property line. Mrs. Conant's house is located in a Residence C district. I've gone through the preliminaries, but I'll do it very, very quickly. My name's John Leonard. I'm Chairman of the Board of Appeals. With me tonight is Nicholas Gray to my immediate right and Stephen Lundbohm to my immediate left. I've summarized the advertisement. We'll have as evidence at the hearing Ms. Conant's application dated 8, though it could be a 3, 2016. We have Mr. Prondak's denial letter. It's dated 6/20/16. We have a set of sketches and plans of the proposed improvements that were filed on May 20th. I'm sorry, I don't see a stamp or an engineering seal on it, but they're obviously computerized plans to show what you intend to do.
Owner produced.
Owner produced, We'll get into that in a few minutes. And we do have a plot plan of the land by, I guess it's by Land Mapping Inc. There's this funny-looking squiggly in front of it, and I don't know whether that means anything, but it looks like Land Mapping Inc. of Andrews Square in South Boston. Familiar territory. Dated May 2nd, 2016, and it shows the existing building and all the dimensions on the lot that are pertinent to hearing this decision, hearing this application. So we'll have all of those as evidence at the hearing. We're tape recording the proceedings as always, so that would ask that before anyone speaks, speak up nice and clear and loud. Tell us your name and address so we can revert to the tape and know exactly who's speaking. So without further ado, Ms. Conant, nice to see you. Welcome to the Board of Appeals.
Thank you for listening to my appeal. My name's Margaret Conant, and I live at 11 Morton Terrace in Milton. One slight correction, it is not a single-family home, it is a two-family home. I'm not sure that makes any difference.
I don't think it does. But I don't know, we didn't pick that up, I think, in the, so why don't you continue with it?
All right, so my plan is in keeping with my neighbors and their front porches to extend my front porch such that it's more of a usable porch rather than just an entryway. I live on a dead-end street, and my neighbors tend to use their porches, and it's in keeping with the social way we use our neighborhood and our street. And so it wouldn't extend beyond the footprint of the house on the driveway side, and it wouldn't extend beyond my existing entry porch, but it would be open, unlike the existing porch. And in the back, where I have recently added a new door, which you would see on this back, on the first page, I think, of perhaps. This new patio door was added as part of a previous project, and so I have no exit for that door, and I needed to have a way to exit it and also to get out to my yard. So the plan both extends an existing semi-covered porch, or covered porch on the right side, this side of my house, back side. That extends out a bit like a seating area, and the rest of it is really just an open pathway to the outside or indoors, whichever way you're going. So it's sort of big staircases. I've talked to all my abutters, and I have had nobody have an issue with it. So,
You don't have issues. Okay.
They've all been supportive thus far.
Sure, they assent to your application for variance. True?
Sorry?
They agree, they assent to it.
Yes.
Okay.
The one neighbor I have not heard from directly is my 95-year-old neighbor with whom I left plans recently, but our schedules don't mix well for me to get over there just to talk to her. But
Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so.
Okay, let's see if my board members have any questions. Mr. Gray, please.
I don't think I have any questions at the moment.
Mr. Lundbaum.
I really like this plan. On the rear, so you're doing, it looks like it's the whole thing is open, is that right?
It
The
is.
whole of the deck?
That's
And-
right.
And you have sort of like 3 steps up to that entry door, but there's sort of, it's a long rectangular shape to go with the stairway.
Right.
going up. That's very tasteful, I like that. Fair to say that the materials that you propose to use will match what you have existing with the home or with the,
They will be an improvement.
okay. I see. What is your,
Right now, there's brick staircases going out the back sides of the house. Those will be covered in the back, and the front, they will not be covered, but I intend to use a mahogany on the back deck there. So, mahogany decking,
mahogany decking?
right.
And for the front, the same?
Either that or fir. The existing deck there is fir, so I may choose to use fir, but it will be something appropriate.
Something
It will not be PT.
Okay, great. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I don't have any questions. Let's see if anybody is present this evening that wishes to speak or has questions of the applicant.
I just have one question.
Okay, sure. Why don't you come on up here?
My name's Connie O'Halloran, and
Okay,
I'm
see, we're
an
taping tonight, so that's why you have to use the little microphone there so people can understand what you're saying when they watch
Gotcha.
TV. Why don't you tell us who, Connie O'Halloran, did you
Yes,
say?
yes, I live at 7 Morton Terrace.
Great. Welcome to the Board
And
of
I
Appeals.
agree, I think the open porch is extending your porch is nice in the back. What I was questioning was this proposed front upper deck. What is, that was my only
Apparently, I
concern.
don't need I don't need to get a variance for that because it's an existing structure, and that if
So
I
you-
wanted to build onto it, I could. And I put it in as a part of a plan because I only wanted to come here once, and I'm not sure I'm going to do that, but the idea would be just to build on the exact footprint of my existing entryway there.
So this is a door above the?
Could be a door with a
Could be a
railing.
door, and you can, so that's something that you can do, you don't need a variance for that.
That's what I was told when I went.
Okay.
I would certainly listen if my neighbors had.
That's my only concern, that would set up, would feel like it's now become a double-decker, triple-decker. It doesn't go with, at all with the rest of the neighborhood. And I guess if you don't need a variance, then that's the way it is. So I thought that's why, that there were 3 things going on here. And there may be, but it doesn't.
That's what I was told.
All right.
Mr. Prondak didn't note that in his denial letter, so he didn't raise it as an issue. We didn't.
Because it's not, and so I could put, on top of my porch, I could put a deck and railing.
I would tell you, you'd have to speak to Mr. Prondak about
Okay,
that.
well, no,
because
that was my
But that,
concern,
that
that we
would
would
be
all
the
just.
inference that you draw, but I don't know. We review Mr. Prondak's decisions on his interpretation of the zoning ordinance. But he
Okay.
did not cite that as requiring a variance, so it's not,
So it isn't something that's even needs to be brought up.
is this the only two-family house in the area, or are there other?
The neighboring house is a 2-family house
Okay.
as well.
Okay, that's
Well,
all that I was
Sorry to drag you
questioning.
out here tonight, but
That was, my only issue. And I think the rest of it looks really pretty, and you'll love it.
good. Thank you. We appreciate you
Thank you.
coming tonight. Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard? Yes, sir.
My name is Brian O'Halloran. I live in 7 Morton Terrace, Connie's husband.
Sure. Welcome to the Board of Appeals.
Thank you. My wife and I have lived on 7 Morton Terrace now for 25 years.
Well, that's great. Congratulations.
It's a beautiful, wonderful neighborhood. And it's mostly single-family homes. And the look and feel of the street and the look and feel of the neighborhood, which is Morton Terrace, Morton Road, and West Side, is all single-family, owner-occupied, with no existing structures on the second floor that give it the look and feel of, a duplex or a triple-decker or whatever. And so I've got a concern about the precedent that this might set, And also, when I go down my street, I like to feel like I live in a neighborhood of single-family homes, and that kind of disrupts the pattern of that. And if it sounds to me like there's nothing that can be done about that, but at the same time, it's important that folks hear my concerns.
No, I appreciate that. Let me tell you this, there's no precedent being set, because we're not ruling on the second floor.
Okay.
Porch. It's not part of this hearing.
Okay.
These are conceptual plans that the owner has given us, but the variances relate to the first floor porch in the front and the first floor to the back.
Okay.
I'll call this, not to be cute or to try to sidestep your concerns. This is not that is not a relevant issue at this particular hearing. And it's nothing that's been flagged by the building inspector.
Okay.
So we're not setting any precedents. You have everyone's got the perfect right to go to talk to Mr. Prondak about that porch. It's just not.
Sure, okay. Another just observation is if you look at the deck in the back, it's a tiered structure, and the total rise is 21 inches. I'm concerned that on the top level platform, it would be a safety concern in terms of someone tripping and falling 21 inches. For some people, that could be an issue. For other people, just might roll over and be fine with it. But someone elderly could be an issue.
Yeah, let me say this. I have to always confess when I read these engineering plans, they're always too small for my eyes. I'd really like to see full-size plans, but they're a pain in the neck to lug around. But it appears that this plan shows that there's a railing going around the deck. Is that?
At the
is that
highest
true?
point of that deck, there is railing.
And how high is it?
The rest is stairway, so
Right.
I would have to be in compliance with whatever rules about where you have to have railings for stairs, and there will probably be 2 railings allowing for approach, either, at either end of that deck. But there would not be railings around, because it would be staircase.
Right, but do you know how high the railing is proposed to be? It doesn't show here.
There is a set required.
It's very small, but,
Is that 28 inches from ground to deck?
well, that's to the deck front.
Oh, I see,
I
okay.
see 7 times 3, 21.
So that's to the,
Does that look like a deck to you, rather
So
railing surrounding the
These
deck?
railings would be at whatever regulation height they were. This deck is at 28 inches high, but it has the railing, that's regulation. This is one step below that,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have railings, but it would have handrails both here and here, so that someone wanting to walk up it and assist, they would
Okay.
have that. So as far as I know, I may run into some issues with the building codes, but I think that's separate from what I have to,
Well, that's not
Here.
before us, but in point of
Yeah.
fact, if the state building code does require railings under these circumstances, I think they're required to be 4 feet and above, so that's.
I see.
That's another issue for Mr. Prondak to, we don't get involved in the building code, we just get
Yeah.
involved in granting variances, so, you can, certainly, that's a subject that would be of importance to Mr. Prondak, and I'm sure he intends to address it at the present time. It's just not part of this application.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
great. Thank you for coming. Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard on, regarding this particular application? And the record indicates there's no such person. Is there anybody who'd like to speak in opposition to this application? Okay, there's no such person present except the concerns that were raised by the O'Hallorans. So if you have nothing else to add? Okay, so we'll end the evidence at the hearing and discuss this application in open session as we're required to do, and vote on this application. So, Mr. Gray, do you want to be heard? You can stay, you don't have to leave.
Now I actually have a question, because I was looking at the diagrams, I'm just trying to figure out the existing front porch. How far is that from the property line? Is the new porch going to be any farther or closer? Is it any different than what's there now?
On the side,
On this-
because it will bring the porch out to the edge of the house, and because I guess my existing porch
Yeah.
would also be within the regulations of
Okay.
required distance.
Okay,
So what I have to have now for setbacks, my existing front porch probably doesn't
okay.
fit within those
The
required.
the porch the new porch is going to be 17.8 feet from the front property line.
Correct.
Is the current porch
Well,
17.8 feet?
current porches, I'm not adding anything to the front of the porch.
It's basically the same as, yeah, okay.
It's like if you're looking at the front of my house, and
Right.
you would see the existing porch,
Yeah,
and then you just would see that it extends out to the right.
oh, I see it now, okay. I was getting lost in the windows, as it were, on the
Sorry.
drawing.
Yes.
So it's this.
I'm not the best.
No, it's fine. I'm
CAD
sorry I
drawer.
didn't catch that before.
The idea is it's supposed to really be in keeping with the kinds of porches in the neighborhood, actually, and most of those have full frontal porches, but
Okay, so your porch, your proposed porch would cover only one, it's not going all the way across the front of the house. It's one side of
Correct.
the existing porch, okay. I guess I would like to hear what you guys have to say about it. I think it's all right.
Okay, Mr. Lundbaum, do you want to be heard?
I don't have too much difficulty with the application. I do like what you're trying to do to the front. I know Martin Terrace fairly well. I think it adds to that certain little ambiance that you're trying to get with the people gathering out on their porches. The back is a little different, but I don't think it's distasteful in any way. I sort of like it. I sort of like that openness with the stairs. I don't think 21 inches is a significant issue, but again, that may be something that Mr. Prondak might look into as far as what you may need for railings and so forth. But in the overall, as I said, knowing the area, I think that I think it works. I don't. This is certainly the type of relief we've granted in the past. You have your neighbors on board, which is important. So I think in the overall, I would tend to vote in favor.
Okay, well, my view of this is I think it's a tasteful improvement to the house, and it's in keeping with the neighborhood. I think the issue of that second floor, I'll call it a porch, but it may not be a porch, is really not before us. Apparently, it's permissible as a matter of right, but I don't know that. And if it's not, we're not approving that. I understand the O'Halloran's concerns about that, but that I think is either something that doesn't require relief of the board, or if somehow it does, but it just hasn't been picked up, that's something that Mr. Prondak will deal with the applicant on and see where it goes. But in terms of the porches on the front and back, I think they're tasteful improvements to the residents, and they'll improve the neighborhood, and I intend to support the application. Mr. Gray.
Yeah, I think you guys have convinced me. I would vote in favor of it.
I mean, it seems to me that the only twist is the O'Hallorans raising something about the second floor. I don't know what you call this. Is it a porch? What is this second floor area up there?
Well, right now, it's just the roof. And-
Right, but what is
And
it-
it's very typical in these older Victorian houses, people often put an edge, and actually, I thought it was an improvement rather than a detractor, but, I mean, I had not heard the concern about it. I don't think the current window up there, for example, was ever meant to be a window. I think it was meant to be quite an elegant door, and that a single-family home might have even had that rail, as many Milton homes do. So it was not in any effort to give my tenants a porch to hang their laundry out on.
Right.
It was actually meant to kind of blend the architecture,
And it does.
the Federalist look or whatever, you know, and there's plenty of those rooftop porches on single-family homes around, so.
Well-
But the building inspector did tell me that I did not need that, so
Okay.
need that approval.
He's our first line of defense to the zoning bylaw, and so that issue isn't before us, and I think on the other issues, you win, and so I say to you, congratulations on your variances. Like we told the first applicant, Mr. Duffy, it's going to take us a couple of weeks to get the decision out.
Did we vote?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, we said we
Well,
would vote, but
all those in favor of granting the variance with the usual conditions. It's going to take us a couple of weeks to get the decision out and signed. And then you get 20 days before you can pull your building permit, okay? Now, talk to Mr. Brondek if there's some preliminary work, demo work you want to do. Make sure you record your variance, that's really the important thing. And Mrs. Fitzgerald or Mr. Brondek can tell you where that's done, how it's done. You get a certified copy of the decision and record it with the registry of deeds, so. I say congratulations on your variances and your two
luck.
porches. Thanks for coming
Welcome.
tonight.
Thank you.
thanks.
Do you want to do a shot now?
Off the topic, I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is the answer right now. A little concerned. He didn't look good in the
I think you're
preview.
not alone. If everyone's ready, we'll call to order our third and final hearing of the evening. This is the application of Seasons Hospice Foundation. The application is dated July 22nd, 2016, seeking variances from the terms of section 3B3 small a of the zoning bylaw. The applicant is proposing to install a series of signs on the property for the purpose of identifying the property, since it has been generally unidentifiable for a significant period of time. And our bylaw says that nobody's supposed to erect any permanent signs of any type in a residential zoning district, though apparently people have been doing it for years. But in any event, here we are. My name is John Leonard. I'm chairman of the Board of Appeals. To my immediate left is Stephen Lundbaum, and to my immediate right is Attorney Nicholas Gray. So the rules of the board are first we'll hear from the applicant, and then we'll hear from any person who wants to speak, ask questions of the applicant, speak in support of the application, and anyone who perhaps has questions or wants to speak in opposition to the application for variances. We're tape recording the proceedings this evening. That's the official record. So before you speak, tell us your name and address. Forget the address. Tell us your name. Well, I guess tell us your address too, so we know technically where you're from. And we can use that if we have to revert to the tape for the purposes of deciding this particular application. I've summarized the advertisement. We'll have as evidence here the application that was filed by Mrs. McGettrick on July 22nd, 2016. We have the denial letter by Mr. Prondak dated July 14th, 2016. As usual, Mrs. McGettrick has filed with us a letter report dated July 21, 2016, describing the application and supplying us with prototypes of the proposed signs and describing all of the reasons why the board should grant the relief that's requested in this application. So we thank Mrs. McGettrick for that memorandum. And we also have a plot plan of the property by Engineering Services LLC. And it's called a layout plan. It must have a date on it, but it's so small I can't read any of the dates, but it certainly does show the subject property and its various wings and the access points, points of the proposed signs and the parking lot. So thank you for filing that, and Mrs. McGettrick, it's great to have you back before the Board of Appeals. We're delighted to hear from you. What's the matter? Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Yes, there are. We received two letters. One letter is a short letter, and that's from the Milton Historical Commission, and it is undated, but it's signed by Stephen V. O'Donnell, the chairman of the Historical Commission. It's dated August 22nd, stamped dated August 22nd, 2016, at the Board of Appeals office. And I'll summarize this letter and summarize the second letter. The Historical Commission supports the application to install the signs. The Granite House was there that we know from the previous, I think it's a special permit application, since 1830. And Seasons has indicated a desire to document the historical aspects of the site. The sign would have a base of granite that was salvaged from the original Howe House, as well as a plaque describing the historical connections with the Joseph Howe family, which built and occupied the dwelling, which I think was subsequently utilized as a rectory for the St. Elizabeth Church. Mr. O'Donnell notes that even though the town has suffered the loss of a historic house, it is fitting that the historical aspects of the site be recognized and commemorated in this fashion. And so he, on behalf of the Historical Commission, supports this application. We also have a second letter, and this letter is to the selectmen, and it's from John Zikowitz, Jr., the chairman of the Milton Sign Review Committee. And this letter is actually addressed to the Board of Selectmen, and it's dated August 24th, 2016. And the chairman indicates that the Sign Review Committee discussed the sign proposals with Seasons Hospice. They met in September to review a draft package. There was interplay back and forth with respect to the signs and the content of the signs. The committee wanted to try to simplify the graphics and verbiage on all of the signs, as well as to reduce the size of all of the signs. There was a second meeting with Seasons to review the revised proposal, and the signs were substantially revised. The corner sign is a gentler shape, similar to the sign that's on the town library. All of the signs were reduced in size, and all the graphics and verbiage have been simplified to the satisfaction of the sign committee, so that they thank the representatives of hospice, presumably that includes Mrs. McGettrick as well, for their cooperation, and recommends the approval of all of the signs. They say that the sign at the corner of Randolph and Reedsdale is supposed to have 3 ground-mounted lights, and they recommend the approval of the appearance of the 3 lighting fixtures. While the lighting wasn't finalized at the time of the meeting, they understand that the lighting is going to be some type of low-level halogen fixtures that will be tasteful to the to the property and to the people reading the sign, so they'll know what facility they're looking at. So they appreciate, they express their appreciation to the selectmen for the opportunity of reviewing the signs, and they thank the Board of Selectmen for their continued support for the work of our committee, or their committee. So we thank Mr. Zickowitz for filing a copy of this with the Board of Appeals, so we'd have it as part of the official record. So without further ado, Mrs. McGettrick, welcome back to the Board of Appeals.
Thank you very
We're
much.
delighted to hear from you.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I also have with me tonight Aaron Sanford, who's the Director of Business Operations for Seasons Hospice and Palliative Care, and Bill Clark, our Planning Director, is here. He works with the Sign Review Committee, so, you know, you kind of have the report already, but if you have any questions or anything, I think Bill was also there for that final meeting with the Sign Review Committee. So I think you have the general picture. Just a quick summary, we began this process a year ago when Seasons opened its hospice facility. That would be in September last year.
Why didn't you put up the signs then?
Well, you know how it is.
You wouldn't be here today.
Exactly, and so we did go to the sign review committee, which is the first step when anytime, most signs under our current bylaw do have to require some modification or special permission. This one would have because it's a freestanding sign. Bylaw, even if we're in a commercial district, doesn't allow a freestanding sign. We went under the assumption that we would go to the sign review committee. We did. There were some issues that they wanted some revision on. We took it back to Seasons. They have their own design team, and we have Signs by J, which is the sign company, which is actually going to do this.
They're going to do the
create
manufacturing and installation.
sign. And they were at the sign review committee
Okay.
a couple weeks ago. And our understanding at that time was we'd be going to the Board of Selectmen because there's been a lot of things going on with signs in Milton, and all sign applications we thought were going to the board. However, the building commissioner has said correctly that the bylaw doesn't allow signs of this sort in residential districts, so we need a variance, and that's why we're here today. And possibly, if we had known that at the time we applied for our special permit, we might have asked you, had a design and asked you then. So I apologize for having to come back and put you through another
No, you
hearing
don't have
and
to
put us through
apologize
another
at all,
hearing.
because you
But,
had
you know,
a wonderful building that you were planning and proposing, and I was being a little bit facetious, because I think the dentist across the street put up her sign maybe a week or two before you filed your application here, and
well, you know, having the building up does make it a little bit easier to visualize what a sign's going to look like. So I think the building was up. Sign review committee looked at the initial one and thought it was a little ponderous. It had two sides. I won't go into the details except to say that this is considerably revised. All right, also, your drawings that I sent you were rather poor. This is a card for Erin Sanford, if for any reason you need her information. That's to go in the file and for you to look at, because the colors are accurate. My printer did a terrible job printing out the colors. It's
we
usually
have to talk to Mr. Joseph.
usually
McGettrick
half
about
out of
that.
ink, you know?
You need a
So-
requisition for a high-speed
This is much nicer. So you might prefer to look at this if you need to refer back to the signs. But basically, the sign review committee advised us on every phase of the way it's currently designed. They said, try to do a curvilinear sign, make it lower, externally light it from the front, which is what Milton seems to like, and it will look nice that way. It'll be a gentle light from the front. And they said they thought it would be a good idea to put a small sign by the entrance and a small sign hanging from the gate, which is for emergency access, saying entrance around the corner, basically, because in case there was, you know, any confusion, although there's a huge gate there. So anyway, so that's why there were 3 signs, but the other 2 are really small. I think it's a sign design that's really been worked on a lot, so I hope the Board of Appeals agrees that it's a nice design. I haven't heard anything back from neighbors since they received notice. I don't know, I guess you don't have any letters from neighbors, so presumably that they're not too worried about it.
No, we've been in contact with them, and I think everyone's happy with the neighborliness of the quiet home we have there.
So that's pretty much it.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think you have all the
Let me
information.
see if my colleagues have any questions. Mr. Gray?
No moving parts or LED lights or
No.
changing things. I know that can be a problem, right, Mr. Clark? No, I don't really have any questions, just being honest.
Mr. Lundberg, do you have any?
No, I don't. You know, when you have the sign committee on board, that, and the historical commission, I think that adds a lot to it, so I think it all looks very tasteful from here, so I don't have any questions.
Okay. Let me see if there's any member of the public present here who has any questions of the applicant or otherwise wishes to speak in support of this application, and there is no such person here. Let's see if there's any person present this evening who wishes to oppose this sign variance application. And there's no such person present. I do note that Mr. Bill William Clark, our town planner, may be a more exotic description of your job than that, Bill, but is here. Do you wish to be heard on this application?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for coming tonight.
The Sign Review Committee is a selectman-appointed advisory committee, thus the joint letter to you. For as much as the Zoning Board of Appeals gets to do placement, the selectmen get to do lighting.
I'm sorry, I didn't recognize it as a joint letter, but I'll accept it as that.
That's why it says Town of Milton Board of Selectmen, Board of Appeals.
Ah, okay, I didn't see it.
And that's why, I
Somehow
don't know
my-
why he said selectmen and not Board of Appeals, but
No, I don't know why either.
anyways, the intent of the letter was to support the project.
Yeah, it does.
All three signs have been reduced in size. The graphic and the verbiage have been simplified. The committee recommends approval of all three signs. Going back to Mr. Gray's question about LED lights, there is the possibility that the lights coming up could be LED bulbs.
I was being facetious.
These little
a
mini-
little bit.
No, but you'd be
It's
surprised
not-
how
Not
much.
yes, it would, I'm sure that's not going to be noticeable to anyone, whether the
Sorry.
light source in that particular instance is an LED or halogen or,
These probably would not be more than 4 watts.
it might
Not
actually
internal lighting, it's
be cheaper to
external
run
lighting.
with.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's fine.
These days, yeah, I guess that's true. We didn't have engineering specifications for the lights that are going to shine back on. So you'll see how the description is framed in the letter from the advisory sign committee. And my suggestion, respectfully, would be that you try to follow the language that they provide describing the signs, because that's what we have. So that would be the way to frame some limitation as to what the lighting should be like. And it was acceptable to the sign committee. We did provide a sheet of sample, a sample spec sheet from the sign company, but he just did some research, and pulled out a couple things and said, this is the sort of thing that you would use. There's already a utility line going out to the location for the sign. It's just going to be connected right there to an electrical line. And
only one sign will be lighted, is that true?
only the sign at the corner. The other signs will not be lighted. And there's really sufficient light. There's nice lighting on the site.
Curved sign is the only one with lights. One of the entrance signs will be hanging on the fire gate, and the other one will be on a granite post at the side of the main drive.
There's also a lot of
Recycled
streetlights at this
Right.
location, so.
Is it recycled granite?
No.
No.
That's a
New
regular,
granite.
that's a regular granite post.
Okay.
The recycled granite will be the
Will be
base
base
of
of
the
the sign.
curved
Yeah.
sign.
Got it.
And
Okay.
it's still being designed. We have only so much. So the attempt will be made to recreate the design, but we don't know how well that will come out as well as it can be. The Historical Commission is happy that at least we're making the effort, that we have some pieces of granite. It's been a long time trying to work it all out, and it isn't completely designed. But the base is a low base, so in terms of the height of the sign, it's not a significant, it doesn't have a lot of impact. The sign is on a hill, so you're going to be kind of resting against the hill. It is kind of like the sign of the
It's
library.
staring out into the intersection, is that right?
Yes,
Yes.
into the corner. So that's the year, that's what the year has produced as a sign
Okay, well,
design.
that's extremely productive from my viewpoint. Mr. Clark, do I assume that the selectmen also support this application? I don't think we've.
This hasn't
technically-
gone to them yet. Once the sign is approved, then they will take up the next step.
What is the
What's
next
the-
step?
That's what I was going to say. What's the next
Can
step?
illuminate me as to,
Just the
no
lighting.
pun intended.
Lighting is a requirement of the selectmen, so once the sign is approved, because this is in a residential district, they need permission from the zoning board of appeals. They need zoning relief for the placement of the sign in the residential district.
And they don't need relief to put,
They
to
may,
to
but-
illuminate the
Yeah,
sign?
they do, you do need a variance for the lighting because it's not allowed, and there's no lit signs under our bylaw. So the variance is required. Whatever the selectmen want to do with it is fine. I don't know what else there could be for them to do, but, and I have great
It's
respect
just
for the
a repeat
selectmen.
of this.
Yeah. Did we have another hearing with them?
Every sign takes 10, there's a 10-step process now for a sign.
According to the building commissioner, would be, he told us the sign is to be approved by you. Whatever else you want us to do is fine, but I can't imagine that you would have another hearing and another permission. You can't have two. I mean, who has authority to grant permission?
Well, we wish the selectmen
believe
had that
that's
authority, but they,
This is substituting for the selectmen's hearing. That's what the building commissioner has told us. I believe
Translate
that's
that
what you
same
should
thing back
explain.
to the
I mean, we will be happy to do what they want, and we'll be happy to come before them. But as Mr. Brondek explained it to me, he said, in this case, you cannot get permission from the selectmen, because this requires a variance, which is different from a
becomes a
sign that's
variance
just
for the lights.
non-conforming to the dimensions. So I believe that we're probably getting the approval
I
from
like
you.
the idea that it comes here one less meeting.
Yeah, I think it does. It substitutes for what you have to do, just in this case, or any other residential sign would be like that. But meanwhile, I'm happy to do what you
Checked
want.
off my list, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here, though. And Bill has helped us throughout the process. It's been confusing, and he's been at the sign review committee, and, well, anyway, I think we might be near the end. but-
well, Mr. Clark, I thank you for your presence and for your insight. We appreciate that. Marion, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I really don't.
Great.
I
We're going to,
appreciate your,
sure, we understand your position. I think it's well stated and it's well put. So we're going to close the evidence at the hearing. We're going to consider this application for I guess it's a use variance.
yeah.
And we can grant use variances, so. So let me hear from my colleagues.
Oh,
Mr. Lundbaum, what do you have to say about all of
well,
this?
I've driven by that building for a year wondering where the sign was, so now we know.
Now we know.
And as I said before, I think we as a board appreciate the work of the sign committee and the historical commission. You came together, you put something, I think, fairly tasteful together. And as I come in tonight, thinking about this case as I drove all the way in, I noticed the Milton Library sign, and I recalled from the application that the curved sign in the corner was going to look something similar to that, and I think that's a very tasteful.
You sound like you're getting sentimental.
Yeah, it's been on my mind, but in the overall, I think that everybody worked well together, and that we could readily approve this application.
Mr. Gray?
I would agree wholeheartedly with Mr. Lundbaum. I think it was a well-presented application. Obviously, the building was the big deal, getting that approved and installed, and, people coming from out of town need to know where to visit their loved one if they don't know for sure. So surely when the thing was approved, a sign was, as you state, contemplated. It's not going to be blinking and flashing and causing all sorts of other grief. So I think it's very tasteful, and obviously it's a very well vetted sign or group of signs, and I'm happy to approve it.
I agree with my colleagues. I think the application was very well presented. Marion always presents a great application and a memorandum and the photographs of what the signs are intended to look like. I think this is a credit to the sign committee and the applicant for its cooperation and producing tasteful signage. Everyone can disagree as to the character and the quality of the signs. It's very subjective, but I think this is a first-class job. I really think we have to look at this particular application as somewhat of an anomaly because this portion of the bylaw has not been stringently enforced. And this particular location is a prominent location, but it's not really a deeply residential portion of the town of Milton. So we just hope that people who are really living in residential sections don't use this type of signage, which is more, I'll call it commercial, but I don't mean crass commercial, as grounds to put this for their law office or their dental office or somewhere in the suburban sections, the residential sections of Milton. I think also this is it's right across from is it the Tedeschi store or something like that? And, I think that the nitpick about the signs here and with the Tedeschi signage over there and the uses to which that particular property is put is bordering on the blasphemous. I think that this is one of the special permits that I was just thrilled to vote on. I think this is a tremendous facility. I've had a chance to visit this facility and tour it. I just think it's a wonderful improvement and benefit to the community when one thinks that people were thinking of putting condos on this corner and other things that would be horrific. It's a beautiful building. It's at a beautiful purpose. It's a first-class operator, and I'm just thrilled to do anything I can do to support this application because it really is, in my view, in the best interests of the town of Milton. I said at the special permit hearing, and I mean it. I think Seasons did us a favor by coming here. I think that's really important. This could have been developed in such a way that it would have added to the tasteless development of this very, very busy and somewhat dangerous intersection. And I think this lends an element of peacefulness and civility to that difficult portion of the configuration of that intersection and so on. I'm thrilled. I think this is going to be great for Seasons, and it's going to be great for the town, and I intend to vote for this application. So, all those in favor of granting the variance as requested?
Aye.
Aye. So, congratulations. I'm not going to make any speeches about the 20 days and all of that, but we'll try to crank this out fairly quickly, and I think that for the applicant, the decision should be specific and deal with the specific designs that have been given here, the specific lighting that's going to be here, so there'll be no confusion about what the board is approving under the circumstances. So when your legal rights vest, it may make it easier for the town planner and the selectmen to rejoice in the fact that Seasons now has its signs.
For clarification, the site plan that you have in your materials is the site plan that you had in the original application, which is available in large size. And I don't have the date either, but the date will be on that original plan. If you want to,
No, I
we'd
think-
like to make specific reference to the document, so if you want a date, it will be on that, or I can email it to you. I don't have my glasses tonight, but I will email it to you if you would like me to, in any case. That's the only thing I wanted to make sure was clear. That isn't a new site plan.
Why don't you just email Mary the date,
I will
and that'll incorporate that into the decision. So
do that.
thank you for coming this evening, and congratulations on your signage. The place, I think the landscaping that you had done was very, very nice, and Jason did a good job on that. And I think the facility itself, it's just a great-looking facility, and it does a great work. So congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark, for coming and working with the sign committee and making some sense of all of this.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll be adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Limited to its facts.